What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome to this special episode of Outside the Trenches here at a special noon time here on Thursday. We appreciate you for spending part of your day with us, whether you're watching this live or listening to the podcast afterwards. I am BJ Kissel, joined as always by my good friends Nick Leckey and Mr. Tucker Franklin. And we've got to thank Jack Stack Barbecue for making all of this possible. Thank you for tuning in again. Nick, how goes it on this Thursday afternoon?
It's good, man. It's good. I got no complaints right now, so I'm just happy to be doing this right now. So I got some thoughts, and I'm excited about this upcoming weekend too. So it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm curious with our fancy title of our show of Could Odell Beckham Help the Chiefs? Yes, but please continue to listen as we break down more of what that means. And Tucker, how goes it for you? We've been talking all day, but how's your day so far? And how excited are you to podcast for the next 30 minutes?
Man, it's been a busy week because we've been cranking out all kinds of content. You know, we've got, like last week, you got to see some great defensive breakdowns. We usually are on the offensive side breaking down stuff with Matt Castle. Had Derek Johnson and Mike DeVito break down a play. That was awesome. I don't know if we've talked about how cool that was, but just to have a 20-minute clip. I don't even know if you can call that a clip. That's a full podcast at that point of those two guys talking defense, talking about Willie Gay Jr. and really the next generation of Chiefs linebackers was really cool. And there's just a ton of content and a ton of things in the works that are going to happen that are very exciting. BJ, I started to sound like you, starting to pitch things that we haven't
I was going to see
yet.
how much you were going to give away, and I was just going to let you go with it. But
no, I can't.
No, but I agree with you. And the coolest part, and this is just the fact that Derek Johnson and Mike DeVito, who are good buddies, they're good friends, and that comes out in the video. And every time they talk about each other, that goes back to when they both got injured and they went through rehab together. That was something that was very real at the time, and they both spoke about it a lot, and is obviously carried over as they're both done playing now. But my favorite part of that entire thing was talking to Mike and getting it set up with DJ and telling Craig the news, because DJ is just like, not to make fun of Craig, it's like one of his all-time favorite players, and we knew what it was going to mean to him. So Kent and I actually called Craig on a Zoom, and he was driving with his family on I-70, made him pull off the side of the road and was like, "Hey, we need to Zoom right now. Like, we got to tell you something." And we recorded the call, and he tried to hold it in, but it was cool. It was special for him, and hopefully we can continue to do cool stuff like that. DJ was awesome. And then I don't know if you were alluding to this, but we do have a new show coming to the network that has been in the works for a while, but we are recording the first episode tomorrow afternoon, and we'll get that up on all of our channels soon after that. I don't want to give too much of the show away, but it's going to be at a very cool location, and it's going to be a little bit different than everything else that we have on the network by design. And so that should be a whole lot of fun. But right now, everybody tuning in here on this Thursday, I know the Chiefs just had their press conferences. I saw a lot of Tommy Townsend quotes, and we can't go too far into this show before we give Tucker an opportunity to talk about a guy that went out there and averaged 56.8 yards on like 6 punts, 5 inside the 20, and one of the best. I think Dave Tobe with some quotes saying one of the best special team punting performances he's probably ever seen. Tucker, man, the floor is yours, my guy.
Listen, I just want to thank Tommy for validating all of my opinions and going out there and dropping absolute bombs. Send him a message after the performance, by the way.
Of course he did. Did you sleep in the jersey?
No, I should have. I haven't taken it down from there, but I need to display it more prominently. The goal is to get him to like sign it or something. Maybe we
That's
can
right.
get him to sign it, and then I can like frame it and then have it a nice big display behind here. I'll move some of these pinnets around, and I'll feature the Tommy Townsend jersey. But man, listen, I wasn't surprised about the performance because I know that's what Tommy Townsend can do. Watching him punt, and there's videos of him coming out of like this off season. I don't know if you saw this. He had like a 6-second hang time punt or something like that, and he can really just boot him 60 yards, 6-second hang time. But man, it's a weapon for sure. I know a lot of people don't like punters. I know like, oh, you should go for it on fourth down. I usually like to go for it on fourth down, but if you're backed up and you really need to change field position, it's pretty good to have Tommy Townsend on your sideline that he can just literally drop a dime in the coffin corner and flip the field position and flip momentum for your team. So it was huge this past weekend for the Chiefs, especially that offense wasn't clicking and he was able to flip those fields, help the defense kind of get a little bit of momentum, and then ultimately lead to a win.
Yeah, it's about all three phases working, and when one of them wasn't running at its highest efficiency in the offense, and we've seen that, it's great to see the defense start to step back up. We've talked about on this show a lot of just giving grace, giving a little bit of time, and letting them figure things out throughout the course of the season, Nick. And I know you've kind of preached that from the beginning as somebody who's been there before, who just kind of says, like, let them work through this stuff, that not everything isn't everything every week, and that guys can get better and they can figure things out. And now we're seeing on the defensive side of the ball, some of the guys that people were talking about needing to step up, those guys are stepping up.
Yeah, and it's cool too. And I think it's especially great to have special teams. Special teams was the biggest reason the Chiefs won that game. I mean, they like 3 missed field goals and the punting. There is psychologically when you're going on as an offense, and if you have the ball, at your 50 or past the 50, you're like, okay, we can do this. But if you're like back at your own 20 or you're back your own 10, you're like, that's a long drive, and you don't have the most confidence with that. So that's huge, man. And that's how you win those close games. Everyone steps up at the right time.
Cool. And again, appreciate everybody out there for listening. If you have any questions or comments on any of the chat rooms, whether you're on our YouTube page or whether you're on Facebook, wherever you're at, Twitter, whatever, send us your questions, tweet us, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And I know title of the show, we're going to talk Odell Beckham. It hasn't been a huge secret. It's been something Chiefs Kingdom's been talking about for the last few years. And so I would be curious, Nick, your thoughts to start this off on the Odell Beckham. And I think it's very similar to the Josh Gordon. It's very similar to the Le'Veon Bell in that you got, and not in any kind of production, but what your expectations of what you're thinking that you're getting, and is that what you're paying for? Is that what your expectations are as far as how he fits into the offense, all those things? Just when you first heard Odell Beckham and the Chiefs connected, because it's out there everywhere now that they're at least trying, what was your reaction?
It's a gamble. And initially you think, no, I mean, the guy's known for one catch and he's been hurt last year, hasn't been playing this year, hasn't been contributing to the offense. So you want that sort of superstar, that guy who's going to like kind of be a bright spot on an offense and, can slide in somewhere. I don't like the, his work ethic and the way, or not his work. I don't question work ethic. The way he goes about it, like having his dad tweet out stuff, him, be on the sideline disgruntled. It's worth a gamble. I don't like that stuff, but it's worth a gamble when you have a player like him who is a prima donna. He is the definition of a prima donna, and to gamble on him being motivated because he got cut. So you're like, okay, I could use him this year in our offense, and he's going to be motivated to get that, next contract or to play for next year. And so you use it for one season. But as far as anything past that, and that's a gamble, that's a gamble, but it could pay off big dividends.
Tucker, What do you think? Let me get your thoughts.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I don't think it would be a bad thing to sign Odell Beckham, right? He is still talented. Like, he's a talented wide receiver. He does add attention that defenses have to account for. And that's something that we talked about with Josh Gordon too, right? Like, Josh Gordon's a guy that you have to account for. We just haven't seen him a whole lot of targets. I think he's got like 3 targets and 2 of them have been Patrick Mahomes interceptions. And it's just like one of those things. It's just like really unfortunate. But I think that Odell would be kind of a smoke and mirrors type of guy if you do bring him in, because listen, it's talked about every time the Chiefs sign a wide receiver is that it takes a while to learn this offense. And that's not a surprise. That's not a shock to anybody. And so how effective can Odell Beckham Jr. really be in, say, probably 12 weeks, right? He probably won't play until week 12. It's week 10 right now. You know, he's not going to make a decision until, he's already said, until probably next Monday. So that's week 11. That's going to take it out. Probably week 13, honestly, if we start really thinking about when he's going to be able to be active. So how effective is he going to be in those few weeks? You know, the Chiefs do need to make a playoff push. I put in air quotes because the AFC is so up in the air right now, but they're not in a playoff spot right now. They need to be in a position where they can make that push. Does Odell help them? It probably opens up Tyreek or Travis Kelce a little bit more, but that's what we thought Josh Gordon was going to do, right? And that really hasn't happened yet. So I don't know how much more effective that will be. I get that Odell's kind of different in the same vein as Josh Gordon, because Josh Gordon been out of the league for a little bit. But I honestly think Josh Gordon's more talented than Odell Beckham. I think Josh Gordon has a little bit more talent, can add a little bit more to the Chiefs offense than kind of Odell will. But I don't want people to hear me say that and think that I don't want Odell Beckham on the Chiefs, because
I was like, you just said that on a live podcast, Tucker. You just said that for the entire world.
But I do want him on the Chiefs, but I just don't think he can help the Chiefs. Yes. Is it like, it's like one of those cost benefit reward analysis? It's just like, is it worth it? Like, he could be a league minimum guy, but you're going to get him on a league minimum deal maybe for 6 weeks plus the playoffs. He's probably not going to resign. So I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like the Chiefs cap room is coming up against it too. So it's, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's a lot of things working in the opposite of the Chiefs' favor, but like the idea of Odell Beckham with Patrick Mahomes is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just the optimistic side of my brain that if the Chiefs do go out and get him, I trust that Andy Reid's time in the league and the relationships he has with the different coaches and any time they spent around each other at a Pro Bowl or any questions from his agent that were answered about motivation. Some of the stuff with the dad could be bad, but that stuff could also have been done to get him out and be part of, like, let's not pretend that couldn't have. I don't want to throw things out there, but we don't know the entire picture of how he forced himself out. So if the Chiefs do bring him in, I would feel like they have answered the questions that we just asked that we don't need to ask should they bring him in. I don't think they would bring him in if there's any kind of a problem with kind of where the Chiefs are at and that this team was supposed to be, fighting to go undefeated. And then obviously struggled to be the number one storyline in the NFL is what happened to the Chiefs. We thought they were going to be the most dominant team, go back to the playoffs, and now they're right in the middle of that race. From a fan, we're right in the thick of it. But from a locker room culture standpoint, do you want to bring in what we think on the outside is a risk? But Nick, I see you're shaking your head. It could potentially not be a risk. There are factors that we aren't aware of. And maybe I'm completely wrong. I just feel like if they bring him in, whatever those questions are would have been figured out. Like those questions were solved. That's where I come from in the whole deal. And if they don't sign him, then I can say, okay, he's a prima donna. He didn't want to be here. He just wanted number one targets, a lot of money.
And I think we're forgetting about the players who are already there too. What does it do to that psyche and that attitude of that wide receiver room when bringing a guy like that? Because then someone's going to have to leave, right? So you bring one in, you got to let go of the other. So you got to look at it from that standpoint too. And that could really screw up a lot of people's heads right now when there's sort of chaos right now anyways, as far as offensive trying to find their footing.
What if it's Josh Gordon?
Right.
Like, what if Josh Gordon just can't pick up the offense? Because we've talked about this a lot, that playing receiver for the Chiefs, they don't call routes. We just run out and your route as soon as you run out of the huddle. You got to see the leverage. You got to see where you fit inside of the rules and the things that they do against different coverages. So maybe he's just not picking up that side of it. And whatever Josh Gordon offers is any time of a special teams player. Odell's going to be in the same boat, and that's where Dave Toub gets involved. Maybe it's Josh Gordon or Odell, and if Odell can learn the offense or pick things up quicker and be more trusted by Mahomes to be where he needs to be as a third option, that third option is where you're going when the pocket's about to close in. You're about to escape the pocket. You want to trust that those guys are going to be exactly where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I've thought that too, is like if the Chiefs go get Odell, is this them giving up on Josh Gordon? And I don't necessarily think that those two things are related, because Josh Gordon did sign a multi-year deal. They kind of see Josh Gordon as a long-term option for them to kind of build off of. But I think that Odell would be a 1 year at most deal. to finish out the rest of the 2021 season. So it's one of those things where it's probably like a Darius Fountain gets released and then signed to practice squad or something like that type of deal. But yeah, it's really an interesting situation, especially after they just brought in another wide receiver. And if you're a wide receiver in that room, they bring in another wide receiver, you think, okay, I did it. I survived. And then you hear, oh, they're looking at another wide receiver. So it's just like, man, I cannot imagine how that must feel to be in that room. You got to always have eyes behind your head, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And then think about the storylines if Odell chooses to go somewhere else. And then it's Juju Smith-Schuster chose to not come to Kansas City. And now Odell Beckham chose not to come to Kansas City. Is Kansas City is that kind of an environment not as enticing as we assume it will, that everyone in the league wants to come play with Patrick Mahomes? Like, does that conversation need to take place at some point, Nick? Or is it simple as somebody offered $10 more than the other team, and that's just where you go and where you go play?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. Right now, it's a cluster. Like right now, it does not look like fun to be in Kansas City. So we'll see with that. And I think you have to judge the season when it's done. Like you can't ever judge a season mid-season because there are teams that have started off 8-0 and not made the playoffs. Yeah. So it's just one of those things you like this thing, like good teams separate themselves November, December. And so we have to wait for November, December. You know, Chiefs made their Super Bowl run in 2019 when they flipped the script in late November, you know, and there's the last season stretch, you know, in the November, December, January. So we'll see. And look at some teams will get wild card and make a run.
Yeah. Regardless of whether Odell comes or whether they're just banking on Josh Gordon getting more, the fact is that what they're going to need is a lot of leadership. And you guys know who shows a lot of leadership is Fairway Independent Mortgage, because Fairway Independent Mortgage makes the home loan process as simple as possible by guiding you through every step, just as they've done for the past 25 years. Call Jennifer Dixon at 816-390-8898. That's 816-390-8898. Great rates, a focus on customer service, and the fastest turn times in the industry. That is Fairway Independent Mortgage. Guys, we've talked about Odell. That's been a storyline. Now let's move forward to the Sunday night game against the Las Vegas Raiders. There are no shortage of storylines going into this one. Nick, what is the one that you want to talk about first that gets you most excited thinking about this matchup on Sunday night in Vegas?
Well, the one that does get me excited is that Derek Carr is a solid leader. And I think that's what you need in times like this. You know, my hearts go out to the victim of Henry Ruggs' drunk driving. That's tragic. And I think if you got a guy like Derek Carr as your leader, you kind of hate to play the Raiders right now just because you think they're in chaos. But sometimes chaos produces, brings out the best in us. And when you got a guy like Derek Carr leading that team, they're going to rally behind him. He's a genuine guy. People love him. And so they're dangerous. And plus they're looking to get back at the Chiefs. They're looking to take their shots at the king right now. And that's what's going to happen in divisional game. No matter if one team was 8-0, one team was 0-8, you're going to get your best shot, and you know each other so well. You give the slight edge to the home team.
Tucker, what's the storyline that you're most looking forward to watching come to fruition or play out on Sunday?
I think kind of in the same vein as Nick there is that Derek Carr's he's a good quarterback. As much as Chiefs fans might not like to admit it, he's a pretty good quarterback. And this will be the first good quarterback in a couple weeks the Chiefs has seen, and we've seen the Chiefs defense incrementally improve. I want to see them show out, play really well against a good quarterback that's not to the caliber of Daniel Jones or is not to the caliber of Jordan Love. I would like to see them perform well, and we talked about it and plenty of other shows that the Chiefs defense did play well against Jordan Love. If Aaron Rodgers was in there, maybe he throws a few guys open, but the Chiefs secondary covered pretty well. Not a lot of guys were open in that game. So I want to see them continue to do that, continue to Spags to dial up those blitzes. I know that he loves to do that against young quarterbacks, but why not do it against all quarterbacks? I thought he called a phenomenal game last week in terms of coverages, blitzes, everything of that sort. It just seemed like everything he called came at the perfect time. And I thought that it was a very good performance. And I'm looking forward to see the defense take another step, because when we talk about the 2019 team and compare it to this team, this was about the time the defense took that step forward. I think that Titans game was either week 10 or 11 of 2019, and we're getting to that spot again. So I think that it's going to be this little turning point, right? We've always got to say, hey, this is going to be the turning point, and you don't want to be premature on it like we were for the second half of the Washington game. But I really do think that those two stretches right there against not very top tier quarterbacks have given the Chiefs defense a little bit more confidence that they can take into this game against a pretty good quarterback in Derek Carr.
Yeah, I think it was the 2019 season. The game that stands out to me was the Mexico City game that Daniel Sorensen sealed it with that interception, and I just upset half of Chiefs Kingdom with that comment. But Tucker, my storyline that I want to watch in this game is kind of similar to what you're saying, and it goes back to what Joey Bosa had said earlier in the year, which is about the most inflammatory thing I'd ever heard in like the last 5 years in any NFL player say, is that Derek Carr gets rattled when you get some pressure on him. And Derek Carr was asked about it, and he was like, yeah, that pissed me off. But I want to see Frank Clark. I want to see Chris Jones and Melvin Ingram makes an immediate impact when he gets out on the field. I want to see those guys continue to get pressure because, Nick, to your point, as much as the Chiefs are almost the bad guy going up and playing a team that is kind of going through this, and they kind of galvanize themselves with what they're going through, the one way that you can kind of alleviate some of those stuff, you get pressure on Derek Carr. We've had a lot of success in Derek Carr's career against Derek Carr, and it's all been predicated on getting him off his spot, getting him to move and getting pressure on him. And I want to see Frank Clark continue to have, what have we seen, 3 of the best, 4 games in his Chiefs career, it seems like, have been over the last 3 weeks. So him being healthy and making an impact, and then getting Melvin Ingram in the mix, and then obviously Chris Jones going back inside and doing his thing. I want to see that continue, because that's where we can start to stack like performances on top of each other. And we talk about getting incrementally better on the defensive side. We've seen that with pressure. I want to see whatever that looks like on the offensive side. And they've got a task with Ngakoue and Max Crosby turning into one of the best young pass rushers in the league is going to be. Nick, you don't believe that?
No,
you're shaking your head.
Max Crosby's good.
I saw your reaction. I was like, do you have a hot take about Max Crosby? Because I actually spent, side note, I actually spent a lot of time talking to Max Crosby because he went to college with Andrew Wiley, and they were good buddies. And when he was going through the draft process, I remember talking to him a handful of times. And when you go to the combine and the guys do media, like the big name guys, they say, like, get the podiums. And then they're like other players, and it's not even small school, it's just other players get like the tables. And Max Crosby was sitting at a table by himself, just nobody was like, media were walking around talking to everybody else. And I went and asked him about Andrew Wiley, had a great conversation. And now looking back, he's the best player that was probably in that room at that time. But anyway, let's move on to our last segment in this show. And it is Nick's favorite segment, and Blind Nil. We got the last 15 minutes of this show. Again, we appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening to this live, or you're catching it on Apple or Spotify or all the places we listen to podcasts. We appreciate your support. So please go ahead and subscribe and follow and rate, review, and all that good stuff if you like what you hear. But let's get into Blind Nil to close this one out. Nick, it is your segment. It's your baby, so you get to go first. What are we talking about? And for anybody who doesn't know Blind Nil, we each bring a segment. We don't know what each other brings. We talk about it for a few minutes, and we move on. Not too difficult.
Have you guys played spades yet? Have you guys actually done Blind Nil in spades?
No.
You need to. It's an exhilarating feeling when you go Blind Nil, because it's 4 people. You have partners across the table, and you just don't even look at your cards. They deal 13 cards apiece. You don't even look at your card. You just say, I'm going Blind Nil. And then you flip it up. You're like, oh my goodness. That's, you don't even know. Okay, my Blind Nil. You can only fix one problem with the Chiefs, like giving a boost to a stat, or one little thing you wish they would do better. And it can't be more TDs or turnovers. Okay, you can't say more TDs or more turnovers. But if there was a stat you're like, or if there was like something they would do more of, what would it be?
I think I got one. I'm going to go. I think it has to be pressures. And I think I was asked this question in some variation, but it was more like in personnel terms of like, if the Chiefs had to add one player at what position, what would it be? And I said defensive end, just to generate more pressure. to get more guys out there. They added Melvin Ingram, another guy you have to account for. So now that you have Melvin Ingram on the outside, Frank Clark on the outside, you can then put Chris Jones on either of those inside positions. And I think Mike DeVito put it perfectly on one-on-one or I think Jeff Allen and Mike DeVito were both talking about this. You can't just chip Chris Jones. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like with the center, you can't just, as a guard, you can't just chip to help him. You've got to have like attention there, but then you also have to have attention to Frank Clark, who's that outside guy. So it's just like, okay, there's a lot going on there. Now add Melvin Ingram into the mix. I think that's a whole lot. But you can have those names, you can have those guys, but if they don't have the pressure, if they're not logging those pressures, which is a very objective stat, I understand that. But if they're not logging those pressures, making the quarterback feel the presence, making the quarterback see some ghosts, you don't even have to bring down the quarterback for the quarterback to think that you're going to get to him. So I think that that's kind of one thing I really want to see the Chiefs to do is once you bring that pressure to the quarterback, the secondary's doing their thing. The secondary's been playing really well. I think that's one of the most unsung, talked about things going on right now is Tarvarius Ward came back and has been playing pretty good clamps on the outside. L'Jarius Sneed had a hell of a game. He mossed a dude. The secondary is playing so good. Rashad Fenton in the slot is so good, dude. These are all like guys that were drafted in like the 3rd round. So it's like, how does Brett Veach see all these guys? But anywho, I think getting pressure will just create this defense to get more momentum.
I like that.
I like that answer, and that's similar to what I was going to say. But I also, and this is very nuanced answer, but I want to see targets away from Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So if I look at a number in a few months and I see that there are targets going away from them, it's really weird to say, I want to see less targets going to our best players. But in theory, that means that you're trusting or you're getting answers as to what else you have. And it seems like, and we've seen it at different times, that when your offense becomes too reliant on a few players, when one of those players, when you're forced by necessity to not be reliant on those guys, all of a sudden the rest of the offense opens up because you start incorporating targets to other people, and you're not. I'm thinking, Tucker, I know you were producing or you were a part of it, the Matt Castle breakdown where he was explaining that big third down play where it showed the too high. And it's like they're bracketing Tyreek and they're bracketing Kelce. And then when they go through the progressions, he's going to Tyreek and then he comes back to Kelce and then he comes off. I'd like to see, based on the look that he's getting, go wherever the defense dictates you go, because you feel like your guys are going to go win, not let's figure out ways to get one of these two guys open. And I feel like in a few months from now, if we look and there's more targets to other guys, that has naturally happened, Nick. That is how I'm answering that question.
Well, no, I think both you guys answered, I love both you guys' answer. I think pressures will force quarterbacks. They won't be comfortable back there. So I think that's fantastic, Tucker. I agree that's definitely a thing. And then for BJ, I think what I've seen the Chiefs do is there's one like replay versus the Packers where there was a big completion to Tyreek, but they showed the replay and it was like the close up, and you could see Patrick go through the progression where Tyreek was the 3rd read. And I'm like, that's a cool way to mix it up where you're like, okay, they're gonna clamp him. Then let's make him the 3rd read, right? Like, because they're going to be playing off pressure with other two guys, and if he's your 3rd read, that's kind of cool, So that means you go through your first guys. So they're trying to get to your point, BJ. So they are, but so that's cool. I like that. If it were mine, like I don't know, I would just say run the ball more, like not pass the ball.
You're gonna say that.
Not pass the ball, but no, and it's serious, man, because if you do that. You wear the defense lineman out. I don't think these DNs, when they play the Chiefs, I don't think they're playing much run responsibility. And it's like, you don't need RPO. I just need downhill runs, like inside zone, inside power, something to the left side.
You just want to have a little fun in there.
You need that. No, you build your confidence. You wear them down. It does so much to just run the damn ball.
All right. Tuck, what do you got for your blind nil segment?
Before we get to the blind nil, we need like Snyder's cut or like a director's cut of those like Castle videos. So maybe that's a subscriber only thing we do, because there's a lot of good stuff that like doesn't make the final cut.
I don't want to put 20 minutes of clip draw on anyone else's play.
It's
like I gotta cut this down, otherwise it's gonna be like 6 hours worth of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. But anyway, we have seen the NFL come up with some pretty bad rules. The taunting rule is one of those rules, I think, this season that's pretty consensus that everyone's like, yeah, this sucks. You guys got to stop calling that. So I'm curious, outside of that rule, is there any other rule in the NFL that you would change?
Rule change.
I would change the overtime rule because I think the Chiefs could have an extra freaking Super Bowl if it wasn't for that stupid rule. I don't know what the answer is. I don't mind the college rule, like give everybody the ball at 25 and just let them keep scoring. Go 2-point conversion the whole time. I like that. I actually liked some of the stuff they were talking about, to throw this one out there too. Some of the onside kick, like try a 4th and 15 and some of that kind of, some of those like more, things that the NFL will never do, but just it could be a lot of fun for the game, a lot of fun for fans.
Yeah. I was always disappointed when they eliminated the throat slash. I thought it was the most hardcore gesture ever, but I get how it's a violent sport, and it's getting less violent, which I think is a great thing. I think player safety is an issue. We don't need the Ed Reed Hall of Fame highlights where everything now is targeting you're ejected sort of rule. And I like the overtime rule. I think to your point, Tucker, I wish in college they would say, if you fall down on your own, you can get up and run. So I wish they would change that rule in college to where make it more NFL. And I always feel like if you're in the NFL, I think you've earned the right to taunt. I think in college and high school, it should be enforced. I truly, but I feel like if you get to the NFL, it's an entertainment. It's an entertainment sport, right? We're all entertainment. We're entertainers now. We fully aware of that. The betting, fantasy football, that stuff. They want to, increase viewership. You get guys taunting, make it legal in the NFL. Cause I like that. I honestly, I absolutely love taunting. I never did it, but I love it when people had that kind of confidence.
And this is what they do. Like you guys work on this stuff all year long. You work all these hours. You put all these workouts in for an entire year to play like 20 games. Like talk all the smack you want, get in people's face. But I agree to you. I agree with you that second, like high school kids have that level of.
You've not earned that.
Exactly. And I think that differential doesn't mean that the NFL guys shouldn't get to do what they do, because you have to tell a teenager that he hasn't earned it. Like you can have that conversation. Right. Yeah, I agree.
And look at Tyreek Hill in the Super Bowl when he was it Winfield, or I forgot who it was. Came up to him and waved at him. Like, hey, people remember when you taunt them. Makes them play harder. So go ahead, poke the bear if you want. I never did.
I honestly loved that from Anton Winfield. I thought it was, I hate that, it's one of those things where you're like, it's hate, it's on your team. You're just like, God, that's so good. It's like, oh, I wish it,
just had to salute. Like,
it's like, that's pretty good. But a rule that I would change outside of like the uniform rules, I think the uniform and like cleat rules are really dumb, where you have to wear team colors, but they'll let you wear different kind of cleats, and like for different charities. They've got the My Cleats, My Claws for 1 week, which is good, but they should do that every week. People don't care if your cleats match your uniform. Nobody cares about that.
Nobody cares.
Another one I want to see,
your legs showing.
Is the kickoff rule, like the XFL did, where you kick it off and these guys stand like 10 yards apart and they can't move until the ball is fielded. It was so good. And there's like no injuries. Like the whole season they had no injuries on it, but they actually had kickoffs taken back to the house, which you don't ever see anymore. Yeah. And I think that's something that I think the NFL should really think about implementing, and stuff like that. And BJ, same thing with you, the onside kick. Go for a 4th and 15. Make it more interesting. I get it that like kickers, want that power to do an onside kick, but it's a lot more fun. Like nobody cares.
Yeah.
I like fun. That. Yeah. Make it like NFL Blitz 99, right?
No, yeah.
Arcade, put arcade mode.
The more we can make games like NFL Blitz with the taunting, the
slamming,
the hits after the echo of the whistle, the full on body slam. All right. All right. My blind nil segment, obviously with the game going to Vegas, and I saw this on social media, and this is just a plug because I saw it. Tyrann Mathieu, his foundation is they've got a fundraiser going on. Anyone who's listening to this knows how we feel about what Tyrann has done in the community and the impact that he has already made in the way that he gives back, and that they are asking, I think it's like $10 gets you so many entries into a chance to win 2 tickets, airfare, hotels to go to the game in Vegas, I believe on Friday at like 3:00 in the afternoon. They're picking a winner, but I would ask everybody to go and donate. All the money goes to his foundation, helps pay back and do cool stuff in the community. So anybody who's listening to this who wants to give back to a player who's giving a lot to Kansas City, both on and off the field, I would, in a completely unpaid plug or whatever, just I respect what he's doing and I gave, and I would ask anyone else to do the same thing because I believe in what he's got going on. And so that kind of connects to my blind nil segment of going to Vegas, guys. With the game being in Vegas now, the Chiefs going out there every year. If you guys went out to Vegas for the game and you had an extra half day to do whatever you wanted in Vegas, where you got to choose. So you get whoever you're with, whatever that looks like, Aaron, Tara, whoever. What would you be doing in Vegas for that half day?
I'm eating breakfast at Bouchon, and then I'm going to go get a cigar at the Davidoff bar across the street.
Boom. Guy knows.
Did not even think to it. I've never been to Vegas before, so I would, I would have to. I would probably have to do like a very touristy thing. Not sure what that is. Probably go find the sign that everyone wants to take a picture with.
No, that's
are you telling me that I'm just gonna talk like we're announcing? Like I'll just say where we're going in January. Are you telling me that's the first time you're gonna go?
Yeah, that'll be the very first time.
Nick, do you want to come? Nick, do you want to come?
When?
End of January, beginning of February.
I might be in Mexico.
It's all right. We'll do a show. You're in Mexico. We're in Vegas. It'll be good. Wow, that's a different show. Tucker, we got to come back to that.
I can't even.
Yeah,
let's circle back on that one. We have more time.
What do you? Oh, and thank you, Eli, from Israel. Man,
that's wild.
Anyway, Eli Y says they're checking in from Israel for anyone listening on audio. So, Tucker, I never even heard your answer. I was too surprised that you'd never been to Vegas. I'm too excited thinking about a couple months from now. What do you think you want to do if you had a half day?
I'd probably want to go see the sign, that everyone's taking pictures with. Or I just thought about this. I want to go to the pawn shop, the one that
Pawn
is
Stars?
on Pawn Stars. Yeah.
I've never been. I've been to Vegas a lot. I've never been to that place. But the sign, you want to see the Vegas sign? We could do that.
Okay.
I think we'll be able to do that. You go see Hoover Dam? If you want to go see Hoover Dam?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe Area 51, go out there.
Yeah. Just see if they'll let us in.
Area 51 is New Mexico.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
You could drive there.
It's far.
Area 52.
Roswell, New Mexico.
Roswell. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You can go to the desert, Joshua Tree. Desert.
Oh, yeah.
If you like U2.
I was going to say, I would absolutely go play poker in a poker room because you could just sit, 3 drinks. You go play for a little bit unless you're sitting with a bunch of friends, and you could tell when you're sitting at a table in Vegas with a bunch of people who know each other, leave the table. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, I would probably go sit in a sports book and just gamble on like random games I don't care about.
Sports, watch sports, like a lot of sports.
Yeah.
I could do with a cigar, maybe, but
you get your cigar and I get a betting slip in my hand of some random college basketball game that all of a sudden I really care about that 6th guy coming off the bench hitting that 3. It's nothing like it.
I'm not a gambler. I just don't like to gamble. I gamble with my cholesterol. That's it, really. That's...
Right. Well, the other thing that we're going to be doing a lot this time is golfing. So I will be golfing because it'll be in January. We'll be able to do it in Kansas City, and I might get out and golf. We'll be out there for a week, end of January. I might go out and golf every day if I can, Tuck. And Nick.
Cool.
Let's do it.
I'm
down. I like to golf.
If Nick's not in Mexico, he can come with us. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this episode of Outside the Trenches as we started going live here on at noon on our shows. We think that it's a good way to keep you guys distracted while you're trying to get work done for those going live and for everybody else. Appreciate you for tuning in, and we appreciate Jack Stack Barbecue for all their support. Whether you're in Kansas City, go to any of their 6 locations, including the new spot at 87th Street on the Kansas side and 435 in Lenexa. You can also go to jackstackbbq.com, and they ship all over the country. And now they have a new partnership with DoorDash and Caviar, and they can get you food from all over the country even easier than they did before. So thank you again for tuning in. We will see you after the game. Again, we have a new special podcast coming out. You catch that tomorrow afternoon. That should be a fun one. Other than that, we'll see you after the game on Sunday. Go Chiefs.